Hello everyone, I warmly welcome you to another finance series with Oyekemi Ajayi. Today we are going to be talking about budget preparation. In the previous presentation, we talked about the budget, introduction to a budget, the inflows and outflows, how to manage expenses, and how to control costs. Today, we are going to be looking at the practical preparation of a budget. Now, in recent times, we see a lot of apps created for this purpose. We also see the application of the 50, 30, 20% rule of thumb, which relates to the application of these percentages on your income. So, for instance, 50% of your income will represent your needs, 30% of your income will represent your wants, and then 20% will represent your financial goals. The rule of thumb and the use of apps are actually very good. However, the economy, as the case may be, does not allow for strict adherence to some of these rules. This is as a result of the impact of the macroeconomic variables on an individual's purchasing power. To resolve this, we do a simple analysis on Excel, looking at the inflows and outflows of the individual. Now, this relates to the historical analysis of the individual's income and expenditure. The expenditure is then taken as a percentage of the individual's total income. Now, we also encourage that you include savings as part of your expenses when preparing your budget. As an individual, you need to be able to estimate your potential to save. To achieve that, you can derive by computing income minus your expenses, the net you get. So for example, if 1,000 is your income and your expenses is 650, the difference between that is 350. Now 350 as a percentage of your income, which is 350 over 1,000, gives us 35%. So we can say that you have the potential to save up to 35% of your total income. So to be fair and to be rational, we assume or we can encourage that you take up 20% or 15% as your savings, which will be included in your budget under your expenses. Taking it a step further, we then encourage you to estimate for at least the next 2 to 3 months. So in that instance, you have your actual period for September, you have your budget for October, you have your budget for November, you have your budget for December. Given that we are going into the festive period, you may want to take advantage of the relatively reduced price in November. So for instance, you see a lot of people doing their purchase in November because they feel at that time things would have been, a bit cheap compared to when you purchase in December, when you have a lot of people in the market and prices are, on the very high side. So in that instance, your expenses in the month of November will be higher than what you have in the month of December. Also, when you are putting together your income, consider months where you have higher inflows. So for example, for those who do 9 to 5 jobs, let's say mid-year or twice in a year, there are certain allowances they get from the office. So you need to factor that into your budget. So your expenses, remember, we have the fixed expenses, the ones you cannot control. However way it is, you must incur them. And then we have the variable expenses that you can actually cut down. Now, when you put together those expenses, in the event that you have more to save, consider setting this money aside, particularly for emergency funds. In the period where you have excess funds, ensure you set aside emergency funds within those periods. Now, taking it a step further, ensure that you compare your actual position with your budget. Recall that we've talked about historical analysis. We've taken it a step further to say use the percentage you've gotten to estimate what your budget would be in the coming months for at least 2 to 3 months. And then we say that you put together your actual expense in those periods. Now, when you do that, you compare your budget and your actual. Are there variances? Are there instances where you spent more than required? Are there instances where you did not meet up with the 15% saving goal that we talked about earlier? And are there instances where you actually exceeded your budget? Where there are variations, we encourage that you take corrective measures in order to cover the gaps. How can you do this? Recall that there are periods where you would have excess funds and reduced expenses. So in those areas, you can, try to assume a blend or try to maintain a blend within your budget and in your finances. I hope this presentation has been very informative, and I sincerely hope you learned one or two things from this presentation. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your time. See you in the next presentation.